Hey, we're recording. Hi, everybody. Hey, filmmakers. Hey, audiences. Thanks for being here. This is another Q&A for the San Francisco Indie Shorts Festival 2022. I'm Jason Wollos, the Shorts programmer, and we are lucky to have some filmmakers here with us, some documentarians. This is the Q&A for Journeys in Documentary. Hey, filmmakers. Thanks for being here. You can unmute yourselves so we can have a little conversation. I don't want to do all the talking. I want this to be more casual. Where are you calling in from? Samantha, you first.
Chicago.
Right
I'm
on.
in Chicago.
Cool. Shannon.
Berkeley,
Berkeley, my
California.
back door. Here we're neighbors. And
Maisa, I'm calling from San Francisco. I'm calling
all
from
right, a neighbor.
SF MoMA specifically.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Love SF
Yeah.
MoMA. I've worked there a few times. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, awesome.
And Maisa, since I'm on you, can you actually introduce yourself so I can put a face to the movie? Introduce your movie, your role in your movie, and quickly what it's about, just so we can learn. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Maisa Plot Graham, she, her pronouns. I was an executive producer on the documentary short called Las Muralistas, Our Stories, Our Walls. And the film is about femme muralists in the mission muralism movement, starting from the 70s through today. And the film centers and focuses solely on femme muralists and the impact of femme muralists throughout the decades. And so we're really thrilled to be able to center these amazing artists and give them their flowers.
Right on. Thank you. Samantha, a quick intro, please.
My film is called Swimming Through, and it is, I'm the director, producer, and it is about three women who forge a friendship by swimming through the winter in Lake Michigan as a way to cope with the pandemic.
Great. And I am just hearing construction out my window, so I may be muting myself occasionally, just FYI. Shannon, a brief introduction, please.
Sure, I'm Shannon Berman, and I'm executive producer of the film Fire Among Giants. And that is a film about the aftermath of the fire that came through Big Basin Redwood State Park in August 2020, about 2 years ago. And we explore the landscape through the lens of three tour guides, three very different people with different perspectives, but that all kind of share a deep affection for the landscape.
Excellent. And since I'm on you, why this film? Why this topic? How'd you get involved?
I mean, it's deeply personal for me and also many people on the team. So I work for a nonprofit science communication lab, which we are committed to developing science films for the public and also educational audiences. And many of us have lived, and some of us no longer live here, but have lived in the Bay Area. And so we have this special relationship with Big Basin State Park. It's a park that many of us have, spent family trips on or gone camping, backpacking. And also, it's the oldest state park of California. So there's just a lot of history, and it contains these majestic old growth redwoods, which, really capture the imagination and the identity of what it means to be a Californian. So, when the fire came through and it was during the pandemic, it just was a really, really difficult time for many of us who were all working remotely then and just really trying to grapple with all these wildfires. And there was smoke in the air. We were confined to our homes. We couldn't really connect with people. It just was an emotionally very challenging time for us, and exploring the story of the landscape and really understanding the nuance of fire and its relationship to California kind of really helped us come out of that funk in a way.
Yeah, and you kind of took a positive spin, if you will. It could have been a darker tone because of the devastation and the destruction that happens, but you kind of you cover the angle of, fire is necessary for like rebirth too, right? Am I remembering correctly?
Yes, that's correct. So, this fire was really horrible, right? It was horrific. It was super intense, and it came through and just really destroyed, a lot of the property, and and also the trees. Some of the trees really were torched to the ground, and it disrupted a lot of wildlife and people's livelihoods. So I don't want to dismiss that fire can be terrible, because it can. But what we do see, is that life can find a way. And so even after this horrific fire, you start to see little seedlings of redwood trees popping up. You see new wildlife coming in and inhabiting spaces that it hadn't, had a chance to do before. You also see mushrooms. There's a mycologist in there that's really excited to see all these new mushrooms popping up. So there is, there's destruction, but that's also kind of balanced with the theme of regrowth and resilience, with the knowledge that what will regrow there will not be the same. It will be different, and that's something hard to grapple with, but it will be there. It will be life.
Yeah.
And, what will it look like, and how will we as humans work together to reimagine that park and also the surrounding landscape?
Yeah. I kind of appreciated that balance, or that multiple angle approach to your documentary. Maisa, what was the inspiration for your film? Why this film? What got the catalyst, the spark to go and do this?
Sorry, struggling with the mute button. So it's one piece of a huge project that the museum has been working with the community on, called Proyecto Mission Murals, which has the kind of high level goal of sharing the history of mission muralism. The Mission District in San Francisco is known for having just the most incredible and vibrant and politically relevant murals covering the walls of the neighborhood. And many of them, most of them, are done by community members. And it's been it's a practice that's been active and since about the early 70s, and has continued through today. And so the Proyecto Mission Murals is all about trying to share that material, share that history with the community. And so we did a documentary in partnership kind of with this huge project that is actually a website. And so the film, since we only had a kind of a short run time, I apologize for the sound, the noise in the background, it's an active museum. But since we kind of had a short run time, we decided in collaborating and with the approval of our community advisors on the film, to focus on women and femmes specifically, because it was unsurprisingly a group of artists that had not really gotten the due attention and that they warranted, in terms of their incredible role in shaping the mission muralism movement and creating spaces for public art to exist, and for women artists to continue to be able to make incredible art throughout the neighborhood. And so that is kind of what led us to having this hyper focus on women specifically in the film. And yeah, so that's kind of how we got to where we did in terms of the narrative and the storytelling direction.
Right.
And it was thrilling. I mean, we got to spend a lot of time with some incredible artists that really deserve to have more recognizable artworks and names within the zeitgeist of muralism and fine art.
Yeah,
So
I live nearby, and now you've piqued my
Yeah.
curiosity to go and find these other murals. I've seen a few of them, but there's so many more out there I didn't even
Yeah.
realize. And then also, the fact that there are women behind these that had challenges to go and create this art that beautify and improve our community, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, it's no surprise that women deal with challenges that men don't. And so it was
I could have
really a
almost
wonderful.
programmed. I could almost just program female, challenge themes.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd like to think that this film isn't really about the challenges so much as it is about collaboration and partnership and sisterhood and just the kind of tradition of supporting one another, which is, I think, kind of just innate and organically what happens when women come together. And I think a really, really wonderful example of that is the Maestra Peace mural, which is on the San Francisco Women's Building in the Mission, which is a really incredible and incredibly iconic mural that was a collaboration between I believe it was 6 artists, 5 artists. Ooh, I hope I'm not 7 artists. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I don't have my numbers
We
right.
won't quiz you.
But essentially, they collectively had 100 years of muralism experience at the time that they created the mural, and that was in 1994. And so it was really an incredible moment in muralism history, women muralism history. The mural is still up and covers 2 massive walls of the building. And so anyway, just a wonderful example of the magic that can happen when women get together and collaborate.
Right on. Samantha, how about you? Why this film? What inspired? What got it started?
Well, I like coming off of Maisha's statement, because it really also, my film is about the magic that happens when women get together. Yeah, oops, I'm frozen. Am I frozen? No.
Don't worry about it. We can still hear you. Just keep talking.
Okay. I am not from Chicago originally, and but I've been here a long time. And since I moved here, I've just been like mesmerized by what happens to like Michigan in the winter here. And so I do a lot of sunrise winter photography, or winter photography in general here. It's a passion of mine. And when I found out about these women who, I also really like telling stories about like people's passions and how their shared passions create friendships.
Yeah.
I made a previous film about this group of guys who for 20 years have stood outside of Wrigley Field and catch the fly balls that come out and never go into the, anyway. So when I heard about these women who were swimming through the winter every day at sunrise, I just was like, oh, this is the story for me to tell. And as I got to know them and know each of their stories more, I just was inspired by what each of them were going through, and this idea that it was at a time when, the pools weren't open, and these people were passionate swimmers, and that, the sort of daily act of going there and swimming and meeting each other, and spending that brief time together in the morning was what was keeping them going through this time period. And for me making it was keeping me going too, to be out there with them.
Did you meet them by doing photography on the lake?
No, I had been at where they swim, but I had been there. I was going there at sunsets instead of sunrises, so I did not meet them that way. But I saw there was a short article about them in the Tribune that I saw, and it had like a tiny little video clip of one of them just hammering through the ice in the darkness to get into the water, and I was like, okay, I have to reach out to them. And so
Crazy. I mean, I could spend time on each one of your films, an hour on each one of your films. But what's something you learned from this film? Like, can our bodies handle those cold temperatures? Is there a chance of a heart attack or a stroke? Or well,
it's definitely dangerous. Yeah. I mean, I did learn, there's a whole movement of like Wim Hof and people who, this whole sort of cold water movement. And they had not done that. They had not swam in the winter before. They just would, swim in the summer and fall. So they did a lot of research themselves. And they were careful, but what was interesting to me was they don't wear wetsuits, they're in the water without the wetsuits on. And it's because they're okay in the water. It's when they get out of the water that's really difficult when you get to the shore. So the amount of time that it takes to get the wetsuit off when you get out is dangerous. And so they just they jump out of the water and they just rip off their suits and change right there. They have like hot chocolate and stuff that they bring. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it was definitely, I learned just about what it feels like for them, and the sort of dangers about it.
Sure. Shannon, what's something maybe you learned, either, about filmmaking, the subject, or yourself doing this project?
Gosh, well, it definitely had me digging more into California's history, especially the racist past around Indigenous communities, because we did invite one of our tour guides in the film is Plains Miwok, and he's a cultural practitioner. He does cultural burns. He's also a pyrogeographer at Chico State. So he kind of straddles the science and Indigenous worlds. And, growing up, I used to see those worlds as very separate and distinct. But now I actually see Indigenous knowledge is science. It is equally part of science, just as, because I'm a trained scientist, so I was trained at UCSF, and I learned molecular and cellular biology in the lab. We didn't talk about Indigenous knowledge. We didn't talk about Indigenous practices and ways of knowing, but they are equally, if not more important, and Indigenous peoples were here before, the colonists came, and they already had, ways of managing the landscape through their very powerful ways of observation.
Mm-hmm.
And we ignored that, and actually, it's had huge consequences for them and also for the landscape. So that was, I kind of, knew a little bit of that going in, but I didn't really know the depth of it, and it didn't really connect with me until I worked on the story. And so that's something I'll always take away.
Yeah, true. Naisha, any educational observations for yourself? Or?
Absolutely. I think one of my biggest takeaways on the film was, what actually segues wonderfully into what we just heard, is that a lot of these muralists are depicting a lot of historical well, I should say history, spiritualism that is rooted in indigeneity and American indigeneity, and the Latinx and Chicanx community that has historically occupied and been and shaped and informed the mission community. That these murals are, Juana Alicia in the film says really beautifully that the muralists reclaim the public square, that it's an opportunity for it. I guess I'll say this. It was an opportunity to remember how important it is to see ourselves represented in our communities, and see our histories represented in our communities. That it's an incredibly impactful experience to see that, particularly in neighborhoods where we continue to be erased and displaced. And so that is a thread that I think we touch on in the documentary, and something that was really impactful for me, and was certainly like a powerful reminder of what it means when we are empowered to reclaim spaces, and how impactful that can be for us as artists, and certainly us as appreciators of art, and most importantly, in my opinion, future generations of Black and Brown young people who have the goals and dreams of being artists, or just being impactful and being powerful in their communities. That was my big takeaway.
Yeah, and that's why it's great that you made this documentary. It got made, and you're focusing on this subject, especially nowadays and for future generations.
Absolutely.
Is there departments or organizations or programs to keep this attention on the murals and preserve them? Or is there any worry about vandalism, let's say?
I think it's interesting. There's a lot. So Precita Eyes is a wonderful organization that's been in the mission for many, many years, that is run by Susan Cervantes, who has been a muralist, who is in the film, who's been a muralist in the community for many years. And Precita Eyes is an organization that really works to just continue to get young people in the space of creating murals, and I think does a lot of connecting muralists and mural walls. Twin Walls Mural Company is another really wonderful young muralist collective that is really active in the city. I think there's a lot of differing opinions about preservation. It's like, I think there's one thread of thinking that is, maybe graffiti and is a kind of feedback from the community that's legitimate, that we should be listening to as a way of people communicating and interacting with the art that's in their neighborhood. And then there's another stream of thought that is more along the lines of, why aren't we treating muralism and public art the same way that we treat, white label artworks that are in, white boxes and museums, and really kind of trying to shed light on the ways that the different treatment that we get, and the kind of different ways that we put artists and types of art in different boxes, which kind of further marginalize us, right? And so anyway, I think there are different ways of kind of looking at it as it relates to preservation. But there are many artists, Juana Alicia has many art works in the neighborhood that she has worked to fund herself, and repaint and revive, and so that there are a number of, it's a very diverse community of artists, and I think there are many different and differing and disparate opinions about how to approach preservation and just the evolution of muralism. But we love that. We love diversity. And so long as we as a community are continuing to support artists in pursuing their arts, however that looks like to them, I think we're on the right track.
Right on. And that inspires me to ask Shannon a similar question. Preservation for Big Basin, or what's the status of Big Basin currently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's still up in the air. The last I heard, they were involving a lot of different stakeholders. So, there was obviously the California State Parks, but they were also talking a lot with indigenous communities as well, just to kind of see what would be a more ideal way to manage this park going forward, and what does it mean, to wall things off. Maybe we don't need to perfectly wall things off, and maybe we need to have more cultural burns being a part of, just state park management, which actually could have a ripple effect for how other state parks are managed in California as well. So it's, it sounds encouraging. They also got a lot of funding. So, we will see what happens. We know that Big Basin won't look the same. It will look different. And there may be a sense of loss from that for some people, but it could be a really exciting new adaptation that's better for more and inclusive for more people and wildlife. So, yeah, but it's still a big unknown.
Got it. Thank you. And this is kind of a stretch to ask a similar question to Samantha. Does doing cold water diving preserve life? Does it keep us living more, longer and more healthy? Are there benefits?
Well, I think it's TBD, right? But I don't know. I'm just reading this book now that was saying, like, even like back, like Benjamin Franklin was really into cold water swimming, apparently. So I don't know how long he lived, but yeah, I mean, I think I don't know that I can speak, that broadly about it, but I can say that, it definitely made a difference in these subjects' lives on a daily basis at a time when there was a lot of death. And even for one of the subjects in the film is grieving the loss of her husband who died of COVID. So that, they say in the film, like, they feel amazing all day long after they do it. So, I don't know long-term effects, but I know short-term effects for sure.
The group activity and bonding around this activity definitely got them through the pandemic, or helped them get through the pandemic and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, the bonding, but also just the being in that freezing cold water, the way that they talk about it. I think they, say that just that experience what that feels like, they physically and emotionally is invigorating in a way that carries them through the whole day.
You think you'll try it?
It's funny because I don't think so. Probably not. But I was just thinking there was a young woman who shot a little bit of the film who started doing it the next winter. Inspired by them that she Elizabeth Winkler is her name. She shot some of the footage in the film, and she went back the next winter and tried it.
Was it challenging filming in the winter, like the cold Chicago temperatures? Were there any challenges for your film?
I love the winter here, but it was hard for the crew. And in fact, one of the there were a few days where we had to like take a break and go back to the car, and because it gets really cold. It'll be like -10 with the wind chill, or we just had to be a little bit careful, and everybody dressed really warmly, and we weren't out. They're not out for that long. It's only maybe an hour, not that they're swimming, but the total amount of time that they're out. So it wasn't like long days, but so I can't say it was challenging for me, but we did one of the main director of photography swam with them in the water. We got some underwater footage during the winter, and that I was a little terrified that day. But I made him wear a wetsuit that was rated for the water, and he was in and out pretty quickly. But he and I did not ask him to do it. Let me just say that. I would never ask anybody to do that. But he was like, I don't mind going in, and I can go in. I was like, if you want to try it. So I was a little scared that day, but he was fine. He was in and out in like 2 minutes. So.
And Shannon and Maisa, any challenges making your film? I know you were executive producers and it's documentary, but any challenges that or fun facts about making your movie? Was it hard to get the archival footage or get connections with the subjects? Maisa, I'll go to you.
Oh, I'd say we were really lucky that everyone that we worked with was incredibly generous with their time. So that I don't know that connecting with artists is really much of a challenge. I think what was a huge challenge was on the back end. We did so much filming in the neighborhood and captured so many incredible murals that are all over the walls that we had a really big lift on the back end, and just making sure that we credited not only the mural titles, but every muralist involved in every mural that's seen in the film. And it took.
Sorry for this interruption. Have you added the credits?
Oh yeah.
The version I watched didn't have them.
Oh yeah, we have the credits of the featured murals in the film inside the film, and then the website, the Proyecto Mission Murals website, has the entire list of every single mural that was featured in the film, along with every artist that was involved in its creation. And so that's something we're really proud of. But it was a really big lift and took a lot of research and digging and all that. So
how long did it take to make it?
It took it took about a year in full. I think we were filming for probably, I'd say, a handful of months, but I think just pre-production, post-production, we had a lot of collaboration with a community advisory, a film advisory committee that was made up of folks in the community along the way, which definitely added to our production time, and just making sure that they saw early cuts and we got their perspective on the way, which was really important to us in the spirit of collaboration. And so it was a longer kind of production period, but I'm really happy with the outcome, and I think certainly excited to share it with the community.
Well worth it. Shannon, also any challenges for you, and how long did it take you to make?
Well, at the time that we were filming, and I think that they have since opened the park, but at the time, the park was closed and no one could really go in without permission. So it did take us some time to get permitted, and it took us some time to find the different voices that were highlighted. But I think the biggest challenge for us was in the editing, of just really trying to find what the narrative arc was, and also the emotional arc that goes with it, because there is a lot of destruction and a lot of loss, and and also kind of reckoning with our racist past as well. And but there also is some hope, and we didn't want it to be too hopeful, right? Because you don't want people to walk away feeling like, oh, well, things are just great, and well, that's not really the lesson. So we struggled with that, of like how to thread the emotion through, and also, and this is really important for our director, she doesn't want to feel like she's being emotionally manipulated, and she doesn't want to make content that makes you feel like you're being emotionally manipulated. She wants the audience to get there on their own. And so that was also the struggle that we had with the editing for this piece. And I think where we landed is exactly where we wanted to, which was great, but it definitely took a lot to get there. Yeah. In a short film, it's a very limited format, right? You're trying to cover a lot. Do
you think the short format maybe you benefited from being short, like to find the emotional arc or the structure or anything like that? If it was longer, more time.
Yeah, I think it compresses things, and so it also focuses things too. So we did kind of have to focus on one aspect of the story and not
Did you start out saying we're making a short?
Yes, we knew it was going to be a short because we had funding. We really only had funding for a short, and we thought, oh, let's do a short, and then maybe we could use this to kind of pitch a larger documentary.
And
Samantha, you knew short. You said, I'm going to make a short.
I did, yeah. It just seemed like their story seemed fitting for the format rather than a feature. Yeah.
And then Maisa, this is a larger part of a maybe feature project or just whole other larger project. You didn't do short just because you wanted to make a short.
Well, it was a budget thing. So we had budget to make a short, and so we made a short. That said, it could 1000% be a feature-length film. There is so much more storytelling there, and so much more history to document, and so many more muralists to document. So it certainly could have been a longer form film, but we're happy with what we got done within the time frame.
Right on. Well, I got to wrap this up, but let me give it one more question to you guys. Anything you want to add that I didn't ask you, or any comments, or if you don't have anything to add, where we can find out more about you or your project? Maisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'd like to add is that we have our first public screening on October 15th, open to the public in person in the Mission at Mission Dance. And so I invite anybody to come through and check it out. We're really excited.
Right on. Shannon, any last words, parting words?
Sure. Well, as somebody who lived in the Mission for a very long time, your film is really exciting to me and is deeply personal because I love the murals, and I didn't even know that there was this collective female energy behind it. And I know of the women's building that you're talking about, and that has a lot of personal significance. So I would love to make the screening. But yeah, I mean, right now we screened the film at the Exploratorium in the past, and the idea is we want to do more screenings. We don't have anything on the calendar yet, but you can find that film and the other short films that we're producing at sciencecommunicationlab.org.
Thank you. And Samantha, last but not least, any final comments?
Well, first, just thank you for including the film in the festival. And if people want to get more information, they can follow on social media, Swimming Through Movie. It's on Instagram, Swimming Through Movie, on Facebook, Swimming Through Movie.
Great. Well, thanks, filmmakers. It was a pleasure having you here. Thanks for your generosity and your time.
Thank you.
And congrats on not only getting into our film festival, but finishing the film. I know that's a challenge in itself. Wonderful work. We appreciate your work and the films you made. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Check out more indie films at sfindie.com. All right, everybody. Ciao.